Hey guys, Cargas here. So today we're going to be talking about the cards that were revealed for Ashes of Outland, and we already talked about all the Demon Hunter cards that includes the basic set and the initiate set that they're going to be getting to get them have that baseline before they get the new cards that come with this expansion. And now we want to dive into all these other cards that have been announced and the different things that are coming out of that. So let's see what we got. We've got a 2-mana common card, Spectral Sight, spell for Demon Hunter, draw a card, outcast, draw another. So this is a card that you're probably going to want to play as soon as you draw it. Get that extra draw. It's 2 draws when it goes off. Or potentially, if you're lucky, you get to get it in your mulligan and have a plan for getting it to the left side of your hand, and then you'll be able to get it down there and get that extra draw. I think 2 card draws for 2 mana makes a lot of sense. I think you will play something like this. Card draw is obviously always very valuable. It's still hard to tell how much of a drawback Outcast really is, but from what I'm seeing, this card seems very powerful from the get-go. And I think I'm going to give this 5 stars. I think this is going to be a staple draw card for Demon Hunter. Now we have a rare card, Furious Felfin, 2 mana 3/2 Murloc. Battlecry, if your hero attack this turn, gain +1 attack and rush. So that's a 2 mana 4/2 minion with rush. This seems really good to me. I think that since you'll be attacking a lot anyways, you'll be able to throw this in and get to do some trades and potentially just get to keep your 5 attack or 4 attack minion. Obviously the Murloc tag isn't going to be relevant in any way. I mean, it's a 2 mana 3/2 with upside, and the upside is probably going to be able to go off in a lot of cases. So I think this is pretty good. It doesn't seem crazy, so I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. Then we have an epic card, Pit Commander, 9 mana 7/9 taunt and a demon. At the end of your turn, summon a demon from your deck. So this is going to be your big, important, huge demon deck card that's going to be pulling the other demons. It's going to be super vital to your game plan, and I think it's going to be great. Imagine your Pit Commander pulling another Pit Commander, then you have 2 7/9s ready to go. That's a lot for your opponent to deal with. Though Priest looks like they're going to be able to deal with this kind of stuff pretty easily in the near future, but otherwise, a lot of decks won't be able to deal with this kind of thing, especially if you get that discount, like I said when we were talking about the Fell Screamer. I think this card's going to be one of those cards that you're going to be looking at when you're going for your end game with this huge demon deck. So I'm going to give this 5 stars. It is entirely possible that I am going to be totally wrong and this deck just bombs, but I'm thinking that it's going to work. The fact that it has taunt really helps it out. Then we have a legendary 5 mana Metamorphosis. Swap your hero power with deal 5 damage. After 2 uses, swap it back. So your hero power costs 1. This hero power is also going to cost 1. So altogether, the cost that you're going to be spending is going to be 7 mana. So it's kind of like 7 mana for a Pyroblast that's split into 2. And you pay the 5 up front and then the 1 on each of the casts. So that's a really interesting proposition. Obviously, it's because you think of Pyroblast, you think it's most likely going to be used to do that face damage. This could potentially have some control applications, but I think generally speaking, you're going to want this in a deck that's trying to go face, and I think a lot of the time Demon Hunter is going to be trying to go face, and it's going to be a good finisher type of card. But you do have that flexibility that when you use your hero power, you will be able to remove some stuff with it if you really need to. So that's really cool, and I really like this idea. So because this is probably going to be a finisher for decks And I don't see it not ending up being a finisher for a lot of decks. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Then we have an epic card, 5 mana, 3/4 weapon, Warglaives of Azirnoth. After attacking a minion, your hero may attack again. So we had a card that is almost exactly the same as this for Warrior back in the day, but you could never attack face with it. And we had another Warrior card more recently, which could go face, but could only attack again if it overkilled. Neither of those cards saw any play, really. Rogue also has a weapon, which is a 5 mana 3/4 that does nothing. So this is clearly better than all of those cards. But I don't think it's very much better than all of those cards. I did mention when I was talking about Blur that you could combine this with that, and then you could have a board clear that didn't end up causing you so much damage to your face. But the thing is that the Chaos Nova kind of does the same thing, and unless you need that many board clears, I don't think you'll really want this in there as well. There is the potential that you might, if you need that critical mass of board clears, if you're just clearing them over and over and over. But the fact that you're spending 2 cards on this is a little bit iffy. And if you're not spending the Blur with this, then you are taking quite a bit of damage when attacking minions. And it's not an incredibly high amount of burst damage when going face and stuff like that. There is the possibility you combine it with even more cards. You could do Chaos Strike with this, then it's 5 attack, and then you do the Blur, and then you hit a ton of big things. You even add your hero power in. That's 8 mana now. 8 mana, you're doing 6 damage to 4 minions, and you're taking no damage to face. That could be pretty good, but again, very card cost heavy. I think it has potential, but I don't have that much faith in it, really. I think I'm going to go with my gut and give it 2 stars for now. Of course, all of these could change as we see more cards get revealed as we go along here. Then we have, for the last Demon Hunter card, we have 5 mana Skull of Guldan. It's a rare card, and draw 3 cards, outcast, reduce their cost by 3. Oh my god. That is 9 mana of discounts potentially on 3 cards that you draw for 5 mana. If you get all the discounts, that ends up netting back to -4 mana cost. Obviously, that's not exactly how this works, but seems pretty good. Even if you have to play it without the outcast, 5 mana draw 3 is what Nourish used to be before it got nerfed. And though Nourish may not necessarily get played for just the 3 draw without the double thing from the quest they have now, I think that at 5 mana, draw 3 is still good. And with this upside, which you will probably go out of your way to get, that is just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. It'll set up some huge stuff. It'll push you really fast towards your win condition and stuff like that. In an aggressive deck where you could even in an aggressive deck, you could run this, and when you play it, you just play everything you draw immediately, and that just makes sense to me as you get further into the game, right? And in these slower decks with these huge demons, you'll be getting a bunch of cheaper demons. You'll be able to cheat them out faster. This card just seems insane. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Alright, done with the Demon Hunter cards. Then we have Fungal Fortunes. It's a Druid card, rare card, 2 mana, draw 3 cards, discard any minions drawn. So this is the reverse Book of Specters. Instead of drawing minions and dropping the spells, you're drawing the spells and dropping the minions. Possible that we could get more choose one spells this expansion that make it so that you can play a mostly spell-oriented Quest Druid. It's just that right now, if you were to play this in Quest Druid, the minions that you do have are pretty freaking important, and if you were to lose them, that could be very detrimental to your endgame strategies. Things like Ysera Unleashed no longer being there, or Cenarius, could really hurt you if you just threw them away because you wanted to draw more cards. Especially when we already have Nourish and stuff like that. We don't have Ferocious Howl anymore, so that's a little bit less card draw. It's hard to see it being played in the current iteration. And otherwise speaking, I'm not exactly sure what you would put this into. Looking at the druid spells we have right now, none of them really carry the game on their own, but I imagine that as we see more of the Ashes of Outland cards, they're probably going to try and give us some pretty substantial spells so that this card can be more impactful. But for the time being, I'm just going to have to give it 2 stars because it still needs more support to really make sense. Then we have legendary minion for druid, Arcspore Shippen. I think that's how that's pronounced. 3 mana, 3/4 taunt, death rattle, shuffle Shippen, prime into your deck. So these prime cards are these buffed up versions of these cards that come back after the initial one has died and they have been shuffled into the deck. They have to return back to your hand before you're able to play them again. So a 3 mana, 3/4 taunt, definitely not a bad card at all. It'll be a fine minion. But you also get this upside. You get the prime minion that goes back in your deck, and it's a 9 mana, 9/9 taunt that gives you another 9/9, and you can choose one, either give it rush or taunt as well. So that's 2 9/9s for 9 mana. That's insane. That's huge. And from the way it's worded, it does this. I would imagine that the way it works is with the double quest choose one effect, you would get 1 9/9 with both rush and taunt, which isn't crazy. It doesn't really need to have both in most cases. I don't think it would be a 9/9, another 9/9, and then another 9/9 when you get your quest bonus stuff. Definitely seems like it would just be the 2 of them. And 2 9/9s is a big swing. You don't need a ton of big swings like this to end a game out. If you do something like that, it requires an answer from your opponent. And if you keep doing stuff like that, it's going to overwhelm them. The fact that you get this early minion, and then you get a late game win con in the same card, it's really cool. And I think that it's strong enough. You could definitely put this into your quest druid. It would be a good defensive card early on, and it would also be an extra threat in the late game to add to the threats you already have, as well as push back your fatigue by 1, which is somewhat relevant given how fast druid goes through their deck, though Ysera Unleashed normally ends the game pretty fast once you get to that point. I think the fact that the second part comes out probably quite a bit later and might be a little slow, and that you do have to have the first part die first, does kind of hold it back a bit, and will probably hold back all of the prime cards a little bit. So I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Then we have Imprisoned Satyr, which is a common card, 3 mana, 3/3, and there's going to be a few imprisoned cards this expansion. So it goes dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 5. So you're playing this potentially on turn 3. You don't have to play it on turn 3, but you could potentially play it on turn 3. And it does actually go off before you draw the card on that turn. So whatever you had in your hand before you draw on the turn that it becomes no longer dormant is going to get the reduction. I think this could make sense for some kind of combo deck with Malagos, potentially, or something else like that. It clearly, the body isn't super relevant because it's gone for 2 turns, and you're not going to see it until then. It kind of means you're doing nothing for the 3 mana, and you're getting the discount 2 turns later. So if you can sustain yourself with something like that, that's fine. You're going to run stuff like this if you need to do a combo anyways. It just means that you're going to have to plan your hand around so that you make sure you don't have the other minions in your hand when it goes off. You only have the minion you want to get discounted. I think outside of combo decks, it's unlikely to see play, but Malygos Druid seems like it's always got a chance to come back. So I think that this could see a possibility of being a Malygos Druid. Obviously, their combo pieces are in their basic set, so they're always going to be there with the Moonfire and the Swipe. So I think it has a chance to work. This is the kind of card where the deck either exists or it doesn't. So for me, since I think it will work, I think I'm going to go with 4 stars. It kind of takes the place that Dream Petal Florist was inhabiting before, but Dream Petal Florist is rotating out, so that won't be around to do that any longer. Then we have Scavengers Ingenuity for Hunter, which is a common card. 2 mana, draw a beast, give it +3/+3. This seems really sweet. It's A, drawing a card, B, you get the tutor effect of it being a beast, and C, you're getting +3/+3 for only 2 mana. This is a huge effect. I cannot see this not seeing play. As long as you're playing a deck that runs beasts that have any sort of relevance to them having their body, I think if you're running a Highlander deck, like a Dragon Highlander deck or something, you're going to go out of your way to include beasts so that this card will be able to pull those beasts and you get those extra effects. But you're not going to have a hard time running beasts in Hunter. It's Hunter. I think this card is 100% going to be in decks, going to have an impact on the meta. I'm going to give this 5 stars. Then for Mage, we have Imprisoned Observer, which is another Imprisoned card. It's a 3 mana 4/5 demon, dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So this kind of reminds me of Doomsayer in a way, because of the fact that you play it and then you wait, and then your opponent gets to play around the fact that it's there to a degree, and then it goes off and it's gonna do whatever. And because it's going off on your turn, you're going to have the initiative going into that turn that it does go off, because your opponent's stuff will be cleared when it happens. However, this is only doing 2 damage to the enemy minions. This is not destroying all of the enemy minions like a Doomsayer does. And you're waiting 2 turns. It is a pretty good body for 3 mana, but at turn 5, when it will actually pop off, if you played it on turn 3, then it's no longer that great of a body. I think most decks will not have a very difficult time setting up a board that won't be very bothered by taking 2 damage. You can just make larger, taller boards. If you have a deck that's really wide and going to be punished really hard by this, they might not have any other options, but I don't think that's really the case. Normally 3 is the real breakpoint for most decks. 2 is not going to affect people very much, I don't think. It might chip into their health a little bit, and then you're set up to do a follow through to finish everything off on that turn 5. But overall, I'm not really impressed. I don't think that it's going to work out very well. It's too easy for your opponent to play around it. I think I'm going to give this card a 1 star. Then for Rogue, we have a secret, which we haven't seen in ages. I think the last time we saw secrets for Rogue was Kobolds and Catacombs. So of course it's 2 mana, as apparently Rogue secrets are. Rare card, Ambush. After your opponent plays a minion, summon a 2/3 Ambusher with Poisonous. So you get a 2/3 with Poisonous, which is similar to what Venom Strike Trap did for Hunter, but that was a attack their own minion trigger. This one is when they play a minion. Honestly, 2 mana for a 2/3 Poisonous isn't too bad. The fact that you have to wait for your opponent to play a minion doesn't seem like that much of a drawback. It means that because it triggered on your opponent's turn, it is going to get to attack when it comes back to your turn. I think trying to play around Ambush is a little difficult. You could just not play a minion, but to try and play a minion that triggers it that wouldn't really bother you. If it's too small, then you're just not putting up enough pressure, and you can just ignore it, potentially just trade into it still, and then keep the ambusher alive. And if they play the big minion, then you get to trade into the big minion. It kind of reminds me of how Rat Trap makes you have to play around playing those 3 cards, or Counterspell makes it so you have to check with a spell first to see if you are going to get countered or not first. The main problem with Rogue is that they're probably not going to have very many secrets. They're probably going to have like 3 again like they did last time. They really should be printing more Rogue secrets so that we're constantly having secrets that you actually have to play around stuff. But, oh well, Blizzard, I don't know what the hell you're thinking there. But yeah, I don't see it being terrible. I don't see it being like totally amazing either, though. I think it'll just be a fine option to put in some decks. If there's any sort of weird rogue secret synergy, that's probably going to make this more likely to see play. But otherwise, I think I'm just going to give this 3 stars. I can definitely see it finding a way to get into a deck. Then we have Lady Vash. I believe that J is silent, perhaps. 3 mana, 4/3 legendary for Shaman. And this is their prime card. Spell damage +1, death rattle, shuffle Vash Prime into your deck. So she's a 3 mana, 4/3 spell damage +1, but when she gets shuffled back in, she becomes a 7 mana, 5/4 spell damage +1, battle cry, draw 3 spells, reduce their cost by 3. So I'm imagining this as a burst finisher type of idea where you draw like, you get lava burst, lightning bolt, something like that. With the spell damage, that would be 6, 6, 12, 15 damage. 15 damage burst. And the regular one has spell damage as well, right? So this kind of makes sense in some kind of aggressive deck that's trying to push for lethal with spell damage and stuff like that. Thinking of decks like that, I think it's kind of difficult to make that happen without Spirit of the Frog, which we had before. Obviously, as we see more cards, we're gonna see more of what Shaman has, and we'll be able to figure this out. Currently, Shaman is in a very bad place. They're losing a lot of things that have been helping them, and they haven't been winning very much with what they already have anyways. So I think this is very dependent on what cards we get. I think most of Shaman is going to be very dependent on what other cards we get. So judging this card right now is really, really difficult. If you were to run it in a very fast deck where you try to do this kind of thing, you need that extra draw that like the Spirit of the Frog or something like that would give you, so that you could get to the point that you could redraw it again. Otherwise, you're playing in a slower deck, and I don't really see that making very much sense. I suppose you could combine it with Malygos, and then you go get those damage spells down to 0 mana, and then double Lava Burst alone is 20 damage with Malygos, and then you could do like the extra Lightning Bolt, that's another 8 damage. So that's almost lethal right there. So you could do it in a Malygos Shaman. I could see that happening. But then you're thinking, in a Malygos Shaman, you're trying to get to the late game, and you're going to somehow run nothing but damage spells because of the fact that this is tutoring 3 spells, reducing those cards' cost. For you to have your full combo, you're going to need all of those spells to be those damage spells. Otherwise, the combo falls apart. So you got to have a minion-based control deck that's going to make it to the late game and play a Malygos combo in Shaman. Seems very unlikely. I think this card has potential. I think if we get the right cards, this card will work. Honestly, it's going to need a hell of a lot of support. The more I think about it, the more I think maybe it won't. But maybe the fact that it's just a 3 mana 4/3 with spell damage and some kind of upside would be enough to make it work in these aggressive spell-based damage decks. Alright, I convinced myself not to give it 1 stars. I'll give it 2 stars. It has the ability to actually do something. Alright, next card is the Dark Portal. Rare card for Warlock, 4 mana, draw a minion. If you have at least 8 cards in hand, it costs 5 less. So this is clearly a Hand Warlock support card. I think Hand Warlock, the cards they have right now, are pretty good. We're mostly still on the Galakron side, but Galakron Warlock, the non-zoo version, of course, still does a lot to fill their hand up and everything. I think this card could definitely make a Hand Warlock more powerful, and you could get more big swing turns with big minions. You'd probably run more big minions that you could benefit off of with this kind of a thing. I can definitely see Hand Warlock seeing play and seeing this in it. You could even try to run this in a Malygos deck and fill your hand up and then draw this, get your discount on your Malygos, and then pop down those Nether Breaths and Soulfires much earlier and much faster than we could otherwise. So I like the idea of this card. I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. Then for Warrior, we have Cargath Bladefist. Legendary minion, 4 mana, 4/4, and this is their prime minion. It has Rush, and with Death Rattle, shuffle Kargath Prime into your deck. So 4/4 Rush, definitely not a bad card. It's not crazy or amazing or anything like that, but it's a fine minion. You can remove some stuff with it. But oh my god, Cargas Prime. 8 mana, 10/10. Rush, whenever this attacks and kills a minion, gain 10 armor. That is a beefy boy. That is a big heal. That is really strong. I think this is a very powerful card. I think it will definitely find a place in some kind of warrior. I think even in like Galakron Warrior, you might even be inclined to play something like this, because as you go on, you sometimes start running out of cards, getting that extra card in there, and then this big, huge, massive swing with the heal and everything like that. That could be really sick. I mean, I'm not expecting it to be in Galakron Warrior. It probably won't be. But the other warrior card we're going to see in a second does push more towards this control type of idea. So I think Cargath Bladefist would definitely make sense in a deck like that. So I think it's going to see play. Again, like all of these prime cards, they're a little bit slow, but warrior, control type warrior, that definitely is a kind of deck where slow is fine. So I'm going to give this 5 stars. The other warrior card that was revealed, also a legendary, 3 mana 1/4 weapon. Whenever your hero would take damage, this loses 1 durability instead. So it can block 4 instances of damage, of any size of damage, 4 instances of damage. So it could take 4 damage, 1 hit 4 times, or it could take 10 damage, 8 damage, 4 damage, 6 damage, and then it's gone. It clearly makes more sense in a controlling type of deck, and we are losing a lot of cards that make sense for that kind of deck. For Warrior, we might need more control type of cards to make this more of something that makes sense. Otherwise, it's really not going to be very important. And Warrior does have some pretty decent control options in their basic classic set, but I don't know if they're really going to be able to keep up with what we're going to be seeing from all these other classes right now. I have a lot of faith that we will be able to make some sort of control warrior work again. We're going to see if that ends up actually happening this expansion. And for the time being, we don't really see anything like that. And even if we do, it's a decent amount of healing. I think it might take quite a bit to push through it. For some classes, they might have a decently difficult time. but some of them do have that like 1 damage hero power that can whittle it down, including the Demon Hunter, which we're now seeing. It will definitely slow down decks like Hunter, who are trying to, like Dragon Hunters, putting in these 3 damage and 2 damage out at one time. If you were to block 3 damage 4 times, that would be 12 health for 3 mana, so that seems really good. I think if we're assuming it blocks at least 10 damage, that's pretty worth, I'd say. At the very least, I think it kind of causes an awkward situation for your opponent where they have to try and figure out how to get rid of it, how to apply these smaller bits of damage to try and whittle it away, or maybe they don't have any way of doing that and they're just going to have to waste a lot of damage on it to get through it. I think if Control Warrior works, it'll be a thing. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars for now. I think it could definitely end up being a 4 or 5 star card if we get a really good Control Warrior package. I think it could carry you through the early game if the Control Warrior becomes a deck that really works. Then we have a neutral card. It is another legendary, Terran Gorefiend. 3 mana 3/4, destroy all friendly minions, death rattle, resummon them with +1/+1. Now I think this card makes a lot of sense. I think there's definitely going to be some deck, probably a zoo deck, maybe one of these Demon Hunter decks, that is interested in destroying their own minions. Once you get them all back, that's great. Unless silence is really a problem, and we are losing Spellbreaker, so I don't think it will be that much of a problem, then I think this card will definitely find a home in some kind of Death Rattle or token base deck, an egg kind of deck. I think it's definitely possible that it could be totally insane in those kinds of decks and could be a huge swing of some sort, but because we do have things like Zephyrus and the ability to silence off of Zephyrus, and that could be an easy way to answer this, and you destroyed your own board, now you don't really get all of it back. Maybe the Death Rattles weren't entirely worth it. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think it does have a good chance to make it into the meta and make some decent waves. Alright, well that's all the cards. Oh my god. We still have some priest cards that are coming in for the rotation of the old priest stuff, and I will be talking about that in a separate video where we talk about the Hall of Fame and the priest identity. I'll put those in the same video because they're Hall of Faming the other priest cards. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. Comment down below with your own reviews of each of these cards, what you think is going to be the best ones, the worst ones, what you think of how I rated them. And please subscribe if you want to see the rest of the card reviews as they're coming out, and all the rest of the content coming out of me in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.